The Galactic Council had watched humanity for over 80 years, ever since Earth's first warp-capable ship limped into the outer rim of known space. Back then, humans were a curiosity, small, fragile-looking, and oddly emotional. They cried at funerals, laughed too loudly at meals, and seemed to hug far more than any other species deemed necessary. But what truly puzzled the Council was their stance on war. While most species built empires through conquest or deterrence, humans spoke endlessly about peace, cooperation, and mutual understanding. They signed every treaty the Council offered, joined every cultural exchange program, and politely declined every weapons alliance. Over time, the prevailing belief among the Council's many members was simple: humans feared war. This belief wasn't born of malice. It was practical. The Velnari, tall and silver-eyed, had fought civil wars that lasted centuries. The Gorvaks, armored and stoic, measured honor in battle scars. Even the gentle Luminae, who communicated through light patterns, kept orbital defense grids humming at all times. To them, avoiding conflict entirely seemed naive, like refusing to carry a knife in a jungle full of predators. So when the Council summoned Earth's delegation to the Grand Conclave above Xylos Prime, few expected anything beyond the usual human performance: soft words, careful diplomacy, and a quiet plea for inclusion. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien architecture, suspended in geosynchronous orbit, its walls made of living crystal that shifted color with the mood of the assembly. Delegates from over 200 species filled the tiered galleries, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some floated in nutrient mist, others tapped claws on polished stone. A few simply hummed in frequencies only their kind could interpret. At the center stood the speaker's ring, where representatives addressed the whole. Into this space stepped Lisa Monroe and Daniel Hayes. Lisa wore a simple navy blue suit, her dark hair pulled back neatly. She moved with calm precision, her eyes scanning the room not with awe but with quiet assessment. Beside her, Daniel stood in a standard-issue Earth Defense uniform, dark gray, unadorned, no medals. He was lean, with short brown hair and hands that stayed relaxed at his sides. He didn't fidget. He didn't glance around nervously. He simply waited. High Arbiter Corin Vex rose from the central dais. A Velnari elder with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed faintly violet. He had overseen the Council for 3 decades. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber without amplification. "Representatives of Earth," he began, "you are welcome once more among the stars. Your species has shown remarkable restraint in the face of galactic tensions. Many here admire your commitment to peace." Polite ripples of agreement passed through the galleries. A Gorvax delegate gave a low grunt of approval. A Lumini pulsed a soft gold, signaling respect. Lisa stepped forward. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Earth values peace not because we are weak, but because we understand its cost." A few delegates shifted. The phrase sounded rehearsed, familiar. They'd heard variations of it for years. Corin Vex inclined his head. "And yet, when the Zenthari border skirmishes erupted last cycle, you declined to send observers. When the Krell tested their new plasma cannons near neutral lanes, you filed a protest but took no action. Some interpret this as fear," the word hung in the air. "Fear." Lisa didn't flinch. "We choose not to escalate." "That is not fear. It is discipline." Daniel remained silent, but his presence was felt. He wasn't a politician. He was a captain in Earth's Unified Defense Command, though the Council had never seen him in that role. To them, he was just another aide, another human in uniform, likely trained in protocol, not combat. Corin Vex studied them both. "Discipline is admirable, but in this galaxy strength speaks louder than restraint." Lisa met his gaze. "Then let strength speak only when necessary. Otherwise it becomes noise." A murmur rose. Some found her words wise. Others thought them naive. The Krell delegate, a broad-shouldered warrior named Zarnok, snorted loudly. His species valued direct confrontation. To him, humans were like children playing with toy swords while real warriors sharpened their blades. The session ended shortly after. The Council granted Earth provisional voting rights on non-military matters. A small step forward, but nothing transformative. As Lisa and Daniel exited the chamber, they passed clusters of diplomats whispering in their native tongues. Most assumed Earth would continue its quiet path, avoiding danger, seeking safety and neutrality. What no one knew was that just 3 days earlier, a human freighter named the Aurora Dawn had vanished near the Helios Drift, a neutral trade corridor patrolled by council monitors. The ship carried 43 crew members, mostly engineers and cargo specialists. It had sent a routine check-in at 800 Galactic Standard Time. By HFY team, its signal went dark. Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Network had already reviewed the data. They'd tracked the Aurora Dawn's last known position. They'd analyzed the debris field that appeared hours later. And they'd identified the attackers not through guesswork, but through encrypted sensor logs recovered from a drifting escape pod. The Krell had struck without warning. Their warships had disabled the freighter's engines, boarded it, executed the crew, and then detonated the hull to erase evidence. It was a message, plain and brutal. Stay out of Krell interests or vanish like the rest. Back aboard the Earth diplomatic shuttle, Lisa sat in silence as it detached from the station. Daniel stood by the viewport, watching Xylos Prime shrink below. "They think we're scared," he said quietly. "They always have," Lisa replied. "They're about to learn the difference between peace and passivity." She turned to him. "Are we ready?" He nodded. "The fleet's been on standby since the signal went dark. All systems green. All crews briefed." Lisa exhaled slowly. "Then let them see what happens when you push a species that doesn't want war, but knows how to end it." The shuttle entered warp a moment later, streaking toward Sol space. Behind them, the Galactic Council resumed its debates, unaware that the quiet humans they'd just dismissed were already moving. Not with rage, not with bluster, but with cold, precise intent, and in 72 hours the Krell would learn that humanity's silence had never been weakness. It had been patience. 2 weeks after the Grand Conclave, the silence around the Helios Drift grew heavy. What had begun as a missing freighter report now sat at the center of a growing storm. The Council's Peacekeeping Bureau had released a bland statement. An investigation is ongoing. But inside secure channels, whispers spread. Sensor fragments recovered near the drift showed energy signatures matching Krell plasma cutters. A damaged beacon found adrift by Illuminae patrol carried the final seconds of the Aurora Dawn's bridge audio. Screams, then gunfire, then static. The Krell denied everything. Their official statement, called the claims human fabrications designed to smear a proud warrior culture. They insisted the Aurora Dawn had strayed into contested space near the Krell outer bastion, a claim Earth's navigation logs flatly contradicted. The logs, verified by 3 neutral observers, placed the freighter well within the neutral corridor, over 200,000 kilometers from any Krell claim. The Council called an emergency session. This time, only essential delegates attended. The mood was tense. Many feared the humans would demand sanctions or request a joint military response. Others braced for emotional outbursts. Humans were known for their raw displays of grief. But when the Earth delegation entered the chamber, it was only Daniel Hayes who walked to the speaker's ring. Lisa Monroe remained in the observation gallery, her face unreadable. Daniel wore the same gray uniform, but now a thin black band circled his left sleeve, a human custom for mourning the dead. He carried no notes, no datapad, no entourage. High Arbiter Corin Vex regarded him with cautious eyes. "Captain Hayes, you requested this session. Speak." Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't gesture. He simply stood, hands clasped behind his back, and spoke in clear, calm tones. The Aurora Dawn was attacked without warning. 43 civilians were executed. Their bodies were dumped into open space. We have the proof. The Council has seen it. The Krell know it. He turned slightly, his gaze landing on Zarnok, the Krell delegate. The warrior sat rigid, his armored plates clicking softly as he shifted. "You claim we crossed your border," Daniel continued. "But your own patrol logs, recovered from a disabled scout ship near the drift, show you were hunting that day. Not patrolling, hunting. You targeted a civilian vessel to test our response." A ripple moved through the chamber. No one had mentioned a disabled Krell scout. That detail hadn't been in any public report. Zarnok rose, his voice a low growl. "Lies, human tricks. You have no authority here." "I'm not here for authority," Daniel said. "I'm here to tell you what happens next." He paused. The silence stretched. "In 72 hours, Earth forces will arrive at your primary border station, Krell Outpost Theta. We will not attack civilians. We will not target non-military assets, but every warship, every weapons platform, every command node that participated in the Aurora Dawn massacre will be neutralized. Gasps filled the room. A Gorvax delegate stood abruptly. You dare issue an ultimatum? It's not an ultimatum, Daniel replied. It's a notification. We're not asking permission. We're telling you so your people can get out of the way. Zarnak laughed. A harsh, barking sound. You? With your rusted cruisers and nursery school pilots? You think you can challenge the Krell Armada? We have crushed species far older than yours. Daniel didn't smile. We don't want to crush you. We just want you to stop killing our people. Then he turned and walked out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Back aboard the diplomatic shuttle, Lisa waited. She didn't ask how it went. She saw it in his eyes. They laughed, Daniel said, strapping into the co-pilot seat. Let them, Lisa replied, powering up the engines. They won't be laughing in 70 hours. Meanwhile, across human-controlled space, silent orders went out. Not through public channels, but through quantum-entangled comms buried deep in Earth's defense network. Shipyards that had appeared idle for years suddenly hummed with activity. Docks that held decommissioned vessels now swarmed with crews. Hidden in asteroid belts and dark zones beyond Mars, fleets powered up for the first time in decades. The truth was, Earth had never stopped preparing for war. After the near-extinction events of the 21st century, climate collapse, pandemics, resource wars, humanity had made a pact with itself. Never again would they be caught defenseless. But they also vowed never to become conquerors. So they built ships that could vanish from sensors, weapons that could disable without destroying, and tactics based on speed, surprise, and precision, not brute force. Most of the galaxy never saw it. They saw Earth's peaceful embassies, its art exchanges, its medical aid missions. They didn't see the black-budget shipyards orbiting Neptune. They didn't know about Project Nightfall, the AI-driven coordination system that let human fleets move as one mind. They assumed humanity's military was small because it was weak. It was small because it was efficient. On Krell Prime, Zarnak reported the human threat to his High Warlord. The Warlord scoffed. Let them come. We'll feed their wreckage to the Void Hounds. He ordered the full Frontier Armada mobilized, over 200 warships, including the dreadnought Iron Maw, a vessel twice the size of any human cruiser. They fortified Outpost Theta, laid minefields, and deployed hunter-killer squadrons. They expected a clumsy human charge, easy to crush. What they didn't expect was silence. For the first 48 hours, nothing happened. No signals, no sightings. The humans vanished from all known channels. Even their civilian traffic near the border stopped. It was as if Earth had gone dark. Then, at hour 69, a Krell listening post on the edge of the Helios drift went offline. No explosion. No distress call. Just static. An hour later, a second post fell. By hour 71, Outpost Theta's long-range sensors detected nothing. No fleet, no warp signatures, just empty space. Zarnak, now aboard the Iron Maw, grew uneasy. Where are they? No one answered. At hour 72, the answer came, not with a bang, but with a whisper. A single human frigate, no larger than a Krell patrol boat, dropped out of warp exactly 1 kilometer from Outpost Theta's main comms array. It fired one shot, a focused kinetic lance moving at near light speed. The array vaporized instantly. Before the Krell could react, 6 more frigates appeared above, below, left, right, front, and rear, each firing in perfect sync. Power relays melted, shield generators overloaded, weapon turrets froze mid-rotation. Then, from the darkness between stars, the rest of the human fleet emerged. Not in a wall of ships, but in shifting waves, ghosts in the void. They didn't charge. They flowed, like water finding cracks in stone. Krell warships scrambled, engines roaring, weapons charging. But the humans were already inside their formation. Their ships darted between larger vessels, launching drone swarms that latched onto hulls and fried control systems. EMP pulses knocked out targeting computers. Holographic decoys confused sensors. Within minutes, the mighty Krell Armada was blind, disoriented, and fighting shadows. On the bridge of the Iron Maw, Zarnak roared orders, but his crew couldn't respond. Their comms were jammed. Their navigation was scrambled. And on every screen, a message appeared in plain Krell script. Stand down. Surrender your command codes. No more of your people need to die today. Zarnak stared at the words. He thought of the laughter in the council chamber. He thought of calling humans weak. Now for the first time he felt fear. And far away, aboard a quiet command ship named the Night Watch, Daniel Hayes watched the battle unfold on his screen. He didn't cheer. He didn't gloat. He simply said 2 words into the comm. Secure perimeter. The war had begun, and it was already ending. The Krell Armada had trained for every kind of battle. Frontal assaults, ambushes, siege warfare, even psychic disruption from the mind singers of Vexus. But nothing in their war colleges had prepared them for this. The human fleet didn't behave like a fleet. It moved like a single organism, shifting, striking, and vanishing before the Krell could lock weapons. Their ships were smaller, yes, but faster than anything the Krell had ever tracked. Worse, they seemed to know exactly where Krell ships would be before the Krell themselves gave the order to move. Outpost Theta, once a proud symbol of Krell strength on the frontier, was now a drifting ruin. Its main reactor had been shut down remotely by a human cyber intrusion. Its weapon platforms hung lifeless, and its command staff, those who hadn't been captured, were huddled in emergency shelters listening to the silence outside. No explosions, no screams of dying metal, just the soft hum of human drones sealing hull breaches to keep Krell civilians alive. Aboard the Iron Maw, Zarnok paced the bridge like a caged beast. His officers reported failure after failure. Sensor arrays blind, comms jammed, navigation systems feeding false coordinates. Even the ship's internal gravity fluctuated without warning, throwing crewmen off balance. It was as if the humans weren't just fighting them. They were dismantling their reality piece by piece. Then came the boarding parties, not in waves of soldiers, but in teams of 6 or 8, slipping through airlocks disabled by precise plasma cuts. They moved silently in powered armor, faces hidden behind smooth helmets. They didn't shoot unless fired upon. When they did, their aim was perfect. Krell warriors who raised weapons were dropped with single shots to the joints, disabling, not killing. Those who surrendered were guided to secure zones with calm hand signals. One young Krell engineer, barely past his first combat rotation, dropped his rifle when a human soldier appeared in his corridor. He expected death. Instead, the human pointed to a nearby bulkhead, then tapped his own wrist display. A map appeared in the air, showing the safest route to the civilian shelter. The engineer stared, stunned. The human gave a small nod and vanished down another passage. Back on Earth, in a hidden command center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Lisa Monroe watched live feeds from the front. She wasn't a soldier, but she understood what was happening. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a message. Every choice, the spared lives, the captured ships, the clean takedowns, was designed to show the galaxy something. Humans could wage war without becoming monsters. Meanwhile, the Council watched too. From orbiting observation posts, their diplomats and analysts stared at the unfolding battle in disbelief. The Gorvax, who prided themselves on brutal efficiency, saw human tactics as almost surgical. The Lumini, who valued harmony above all, pulsed in quiet awe at the restraint shown amid chaos. Even the Velnari High Command, long skeptical of human capabilities, began reviewing old intelligence with new eyes. How are they doing this? Corin Vex asked his chief strategist, a wiry old tactician named Mirel. Mirel shook his head. Their ships use a new kind of stealth, not just visual or thermal, but quantum phase masking. They exist slightly out of sync with normal space. Our sensors see echoes, not objects, and their coordination, it's not radio-based. It's something faster, something we can't intercept. And the boarding teams? Vex pressed. They're using non-lethal protocols even in active combat zones. They've taken 3 Krell command ships intact. Not scuttled. Not destroyed, captured, with crews alive. Vex fell silent. In all his centuries, he'd never seen a species wage war with such control. On the Iron Maw, Zarnok finally received a direct transmission. Not through comms, but displayed on every screen on his bridge. It was Daniel Hayes, standing in what looked like a simple command room. No banners, no trophies. Just a man in a gray uniform. Zarnok, Daniel said. Your fleet is disabled. Your command network is down. Your people are safe for now. You have 1 hour to transmit your surrender codes. If you don't, we'll begin disabling your life support systems section by section, starting with non-essential areas. No one will die, but it will get very cold, very dark, and very hard to breathe. Zarnok roared, slamming a fist into the console. You think I'll bow to a soft-skinned human? Daniel didn't flinch. I don't want you to bow. I want you to stop killing innocent people. That's all. The screen went dark. Zarnok turned to his first officer, a grizzled veteran named Kroll. What do we do? Kroll looked at the damage report scrolling across his screen. Over 80% of their fleet was inoperative. No ship could jump to warp. No weapon could fire. And outside, human vessels hovered like patient wolves. We surrender, Kroll said quietly. Not because we're weak, but because they've already won, Zarnok wanted to argue. But he looked at the faces of his crew. Young warriors who had followed him into battle, now shivering in the dark, wondering if they'd see their families again. He thought of the human who had shown the engineer the way to safety. He thought of the Aurora Dawn's crew floating in the void. He activated the command console. With a heavy hand, he entered the surrender sequence. Across the battlefield, human ships responded instantly. Lights flickered back on in Krell vessels. Life support stabilized. Hatches opened to allow medics aboard. And on every captured bridge, a human officer stepped forward, not with weapons drawn, but with data slates offering medical aid, food, and water. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. Not through triumphant broadcasts, but through quiet updates. The Unified Defense Command released a single statement. Hostilities have ceased. All Krell military assets in the Helios sector are secured. Civilian safety remains our priority. No parades were planned, no victory speeches. Just a return to work. But across the galaxy, everything had changed. The council reconvened within hours. Delegates who had once whispered about human weakness now spoke in hushed tones about something else, something deeper. Not fear exactly, respect and caution. Corin Vex stood before the assembly, his voice softer than usual. We believed humanity avoided war because they feared it. We were wrong. They avoid it because they understand it too well. And when they choose to fight, they do so with a clarity we have never seen. No one argued. Far away, aboard the Night Watch, Daniel Hayes removed his uniform jacket and sat alone in the dim light. On his desk lay a photo of the Aurora Dawn's crew, smiling, arms around each other, standing on the ship's observation deck during its launch ceremony. He traced the edge of the frame with one finger. Then he closed his eyes, not in triumph, but in sorrow, because he knew the hardest part wasn't winning the fight. It was living with why it had to happen at all. The silence that followed the Krell surrender was heavier than any battle noise. Across the Helios drift, human ships held position, not as conquerors but as guardians. Engineers in Earth uniforms worked alongside Krell technicians to repair life support on disabled warships. Medics treated wounded Krell warriors with the same care they gave their own. Food, water, and medical supplies were distributed without condition. There were no prisoners of war, only protected personnel awaiting transport home. The humans called it post-conflict stabilization. The Krell had no word for it. News of the operation spread through the galaxy faster than any warp signal. Species that had dismissed Earth as harmless now re-examined every past interaction. Had those cultural exchanges been innocent? Or had humans been studying them all along? Had their quiet embassies been listening posts? Their medical missions, reconnaissance, paranoia bloomed in corridors where calm once ruled. Yet alongside fear, something else grew: curiosity and respect. The Galactic Council called an emergency session within 24 hours of the ceasefire. This time the chamber was full. Even species that rarely attended, like the reclusive Orlan Collective, who communicated only through scent and vibration, sent observers. All eyes turned to the human delegation as they entered. Lisa Monroe walked alone this time. Daniel Hayes remained with the fleet, overseeing the final handover of Krell vessels. She wore the same navy suit, but now a small silver pin shaped like an olive branch rested on her lapel, a human symbol of peace, earned through strength. High Arbiter Corin Vex did not greet her with pleasantries. He stood as she approached the speaker's ring, his violet eyes unreadable. Ambassador Monroe, he began, his voice low. You told us humans do not fear war. We did not believe you. Now we ask how. Lisa didn't rush. She let the question hang, knowing every species in the room wanted the same answer. We prepare, she said simply, not to start wars but to end them quickly. For over a century, Earth has invested in defense not for glory but for deterrence. We built ships that could vanish. We trained crews to think faster than their enemies. We developed weapons that could disable without destroying. All of it stayed hidden because we hoped we'd never need to use it. A Gorvax delegate leaned forward. Why hide your strength? In our culture, power must be shown to be respected. Because showing power invites challenge, Lisa replied. And challenge leads to war. We chose silence so others would not feel threatened. We chose peace so our children wouldn't grow up in bunkers. But when peace is broken by murder, silence becomes complicity. She paused, then added, We didn't attack the Krell to prove we could win. We acted because 43 people were killed for no reason. That is not politics. That is justice. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Lumini pulsed a deep blue, signaling sorrow and understanding. The Velnari elders exchanged glances. Even Zarnok, now present as a witness rather than a warrior, stood quietly in the Krell delegation box, his armor stripped of rank insignia. Corin Vex stepped down from the dais and walked slowly toward her. You could have destroyed them. Your fleet had the advantage. You could have turned their stations to dust, their ships to scrap. Why show mercy? Because war is not the goal, Lisa said. Peace is, and peace built on ashes doesn't last. Peace built on respect does. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from species she'd never spoken to before. We are not asking to be feared. We are asking to be understood. Humanity does not seek empire. We seek coexistence, but we will not be victims. The room fell utterly still. For the first time, the council saw humans not as idealists, but as realists who chose kindness over cruelty, even when they held the upper hand. Later that day, behind closed doors, the council's security committee reviewed classified footage from the battle. They watched as human drones sealed hull breaches on Krell ships to preserve oxygen. They saw medics treating enemy wounded before their own. They heard audio logs of human soldiers saying "stand down" in 6 different alien languages. One clip showed a young human pilot guiding a damaged Krell shuttle to a safe docking port, even though the shuttle had fired on her minutes earlier. How is this possible? Asked Mirel, the Velnari strategist. No species fights like this. Because they don't see war as a test of honor or dominance, replied a Lumine advisor, her light patterns flickering gently. They see it as a failure of diplomacy, and they treat it like a surgeon treats a wound. Remove the infection, save the body. Back on Earth, the public reaction was quiet. There were no victory rallies, no calls for further action. People gathered in town squares not to cheer, but to mourn the Aurora Dawn. Schools held moments of silence. Families lit candles for the lost. The government released the names of all 43 victims along with their stories. Teachers, engineers, cooks, pilots. Ordinary people. Not soldiers. Not spies. Just humans trying to live. In the weeks that followed, the Krell High Command issued a formal apology. They admitted to ordering the attack on the Aurora Dawn as a deterrence test against human expansion. The officers responsible were stripped of rank and handed over to Earth for trial, a gesture unprecedented in Krell history. Earth accepted, but insisted the trial be held jointly with the Galactic Council. Under neutral law, Daniel Hayes finally returned to Xylos Prime. He wore civilian clothes this time, dark trousers, a plain shirt, no insignia. He met Lisa at the Human Embassy, a modest building with windows that looked out on the stars. They're calling us the Silent Wolves now, Lisa said, handing him a cup of coffee. Daniel smiled faintly. Better than scared children. They understand now, she said. Not all of them, but enough. He looked out the window at the orbiting council station, its crystal walls shimmering in the light of Xylos Prime's sun. I hope it lasts. It will, Lisa said. Because we showed them something new. That strength and mercy can walk together. That peace isn't weakness, it's the hardest choice of all. And in that moment, far from battlefields and boardrooms, the real victory settled in. Not in ships or weapons, but in the quiet shift of a galaxy's mind. For the first time, the stars saw humanity not as they wished them to be, but as they truly were. Months passed, and the galaxy changed in quiet ways. The Krell Dominion, once feared for its brutal expansion, signed a binding peace accord with Earth under Council supervision. Their warlords stepped down. Their frontier fleets were reduced by half. And in a move that stunned every diplomat in the system, they opened joint training academies with human instructors, teaching Krell soldiers not just tactics, but ethics, restraint, and the value of non-lethal resolution. It was not forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Earth did not take territory. They did not demand reparations beyond the return of the Aurora Dawn's black box and the proper burial of its crew in Earth's memorial orbit. They asked only for one thing: that the Helios Drift be declared a permanently neutral zone, patrolled jointly by human and council forces. The council agreed without debate. Lisa Monroe remained on Xylos Prime, now with full ambassadorial authority and a permanent seat on the council's Security Oversight Committee. Her office was small, unadorned, with only 2 items on the wall: a photo of the Aurora Dawn's crew and a simple plaque that read, "Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice." Delegates from dozens of species now sought her council, not because Earth was powerful, but because they had proven that power could be wielded with care. Daniel Hayes returned to Earth and vanished from public view. He declined all medals, all interviews, all offers of promotion. He moved to a quiet coastal town in Oregon, where he spent his days restoring old boats and teaching navigation to local kids. When asked about the war, he would only say, "I did my job." But sometimes, on clear nights, he'd walk down to the shore, look up at the stars, and whisper the names of the 43. He never forgot them. He never would. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, rewrote its entire assessment of humanity. Old files labeled non-threat low priority were shredded. New dossiers carried a single classification: strategic partner, exercise caution and respect. Species that had once ignored Earth's proposals now studied them closely. Trade agreements doubled. Scientific collaborations tripled. Even the Orlan Collective, after decades of isolation, sent a delegation to Geneva to discuss atmospheric exchange protocols. But the true test came 6 months after the Krell surrender. A border dispute flared between the Gorvax hegemony and the Luminae Concord. Both sides massed fleets near the Viridian Rift. The Gorvax, proud and battle-hungry, accused the Luminae of stealing rare energy crystals. The Luminae denied it, claiming sensor errors. Tensions rose. War seemed inevitable. The council convened an emergency session. Voices grew loud. Accusations flew. The Gorvax delegate pounded his fist on the table, demanding immediate military action. The Luminae pulsed angry red, rare for their calm species. Then Lisa Monroe stood. She didn't raise her voice. She simply walked to the center of the chamber and placed a small data crystal on the table. "This contains raw sensor logs from 3 human deep space monitors near the Viridian Rift," she said. "They show the energy signature of the missing crystals. They also show a third party, unaffiliated smugglers from the fringe belt, planting false trails to frame both sides." Silence fell. She continued, "We've already tracked the smugglers. Their ship is docked at Station Theta 9. We can hand them over to council custody within the hour. No shots need to be fired." The Gorvax delegate stared. "You investigated this on your own?" "We monitor neutral zones," Lisa said. "Not to spy. To protect." Within a day, the smugglers were arrested. The crystals were returned. The fleet stood down, and as the Gorvax and Luminae delegates shook hands, tentatively, awkwardly, the entire chamber turned to look at the human ambassador. Afterward, Corin Vex found Lisa on the observation deck. "Watching the stars, you could have stayed silent," he said. "Let them fight." "Prove your point again," she shook her head. "That's not the point. The point is to make sure no one else has to prove anything with blood." He studied her for a long moment. "Why do you do this? Why carry this burden?" "Because someone has to," she said softly. "And if we don't, who will?" Back on Earth, life returned to normal, but not the same normal. Children learned in school not just about peace, but about readiness. Museums added new exhibits showing the hidden shipyards, the stealth tech, the AI networks. Not to glorify war, but to honor the choice to avoid it. The phrase silent strength entered the language, used to describe anyone who acted with quiet resolve. Years later, when new species joined the galactic community, they were given a standard briefing on major powers. When Earth's file came up, the instructor would always pause and say the same thing. "They do not seek war. But if you force their hand, know this: they will end it before you realize it began." And in council halls across the stars, when tempers flared and weapons were mentioned, one delegate or another would murmur, "Let's hope the humans don't get involved." Not because they feared Earth's wrath, but because they knew Earth's justice was swift, clean, and final. In the end, humanity never wanted to be feared. They only wanted to be left in peace. But by showing the galaxy that peace was not weakness, they earned something far more valuable: trust. And in a universe full of empires built on conquest, the trust became the rarest resource of all. Far away, on a quiet beach, Daniel Hayes watched the tide roll in. A young boy ran up to him holding a broken compass. "Can you fix it, sir?" Daniel took it gently, opened the casing with practiced hands, and adjusted the needle. "Remember," he said, handing it back, "true north isn't always where the needle points. Sometimes it's where your conscience leads." The boy nodded, not fully understanding but sensing the weight behind the words. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and violet, Daniel smiled, because somewhere out there among the stars, humanity was finally seen, not as they appeared but as they truly were.